I hope someone tweeted that.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to be here tonight. And I'm a mom, I have 2 small kids, and I am participating in a form of civil disobedience by having a double anaerobic biodigester in my basement where we are producing our own very safe methane gas that we do our cooking on, and compost tea for growing our food on our back porch. So I grow food for my children, and I am producing my own fuel. And my question is, what resources or models can I look to for avoiding being shut down? Because it's like a concern that I have being at the grassroots level with our not-for-profit solar cities, because I want to encourage this civil disobedience and see if we can have other people join us. We're having an event in New York City on the 14th, and I just want to be able to offer that to other people, like, this is what you can do to, I guess, feel comfortable and in the knowledge of moving forward that you can do something at the grassroots to make a big change.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take first swing at that if I can. It's interesting because when we started to look into doing the OCSL and the Eco Machine here, this is sort of the intersection of local and government at every single level. And it took over a year and a half to just, first of all, identify the necessary regulatory agencies and then actually communicate deals and get the necessary permits. And we found that it was actually an education process that we had to engage in with them, because they were not ready to evaluate our system and the understanding and the principles behind the system. And they also were way overworked, and they didn't really want to see us. They wanted to see something that was quick, easy, that they could stamp, and it was over. And I totally understand that, because the burden that they're under from being the lack of resource. So the problem that I see with where you are, because I know you, is that basically you're not so under the radar anymore, and you have a collection of agencies that are applicable to your project. And as I said to you earlier, I would engage a conversation there to try to suss out what is the level of transparency you can create around what you're doing, so that you are more secure in your position. That's just me from having lived in New York State.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect candidate of what governs what. And because of this whole issue of globalization, what we are really witnessing is a deregulation of the dangerous, the destructive, that which is unsafe for the environment and for human health. And on that, there's absolute deregulation. And while that's happening, there's overregulation and policing of everyday activities for every person. Now, an example of it is the whole issue of seed saving, and I mentioned it yesterday about laws being made to make heirloom seeds, local seeds, open pollinated seeds illegal, and the label of agri-terrorism being applied, growing your own food, the new food safety laws. I mean, India has some of the richest street food traditions. They're being threatened. I know I get letters from people all over, and someone from Canada writes to me that he has chicken in his basement and he's been sued, and would I help him? And I said, of course I would write a letter for you, for your chicken and you. But on the other hand, when people have organized, I was teaching at Eugene, at the law school, about 3 years ago, and I was so delighted to step out of the apartment which they'd given me and see chicken all over the streets. And they said we fought hard to make it legal to have chicken. So I think you have to build the space for safe, sustainable energy generation at the household level as a community activity, reclaiming energy production as a commons. And changing from the linear energy economy of extracting fossil fuels and throwing out waste. A lot in the atmosphere, a lot in the air, a lot in the waterways. And closing the cycle and making it a circular economy. And I love it that you use your kitchen waste to feed the digester, and you use the organic, and you cook with the methane, and you use the organic manure to grow your vegetables. That's the tightest of recycling you can imagine. And that should be celebrated as the way to the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Things will make it a bigger community affair, that more people replicate this. And in farming and even in food systems, with this criminalization of healthy food systems, you know, there's a big growth of something called a participatory guarantee movement, whether it's organic standards or safety. And I think we need to grow this much better, which is reclaiming democracy in the area of decisions at community level about sustainability, which is also, I mean, you're already giving up the idea of you being a consumer buying energy from an energy company to being a co-creator with the biodigester and all the organisms in that digester that make it work. You're already a co-creator. And I think it's the sort of shift from the linear economy to the circular economy, but with it goes a shift from linear power from the bottom to the top to a circularity of power. And this distinguishing of the three spheres. What are the limits we put on corporations? Today corporations think they write the rules, we have to write the rules for them. The issue of the contracts that Ralph mentioned. What are the roles of the state at different levels? And this whole issue of preemption. But what are the spheres where society governs itself? Not in lawlessness and irresponsibility, but for the collective good.
Yeah. Whoa. Woo!
Like in every community that I work in, it seems like there is such a battle for issues like net metering or trying to get your solar, like, you know, the idea that it is really hard to get solar permitted. I mean, so it is every form of community controlled energy is facing some regulatory punitive system. You know, it is across the board. And I think that, you know, this is something that really, really needs addressing in a really far more organized manner, because it is something we really can control a lot more of. And in my community, like in a lot of other northern communities, people are spending a quarter of their money on energy. And in the wintertime, you have massive fuel poverty. And, you know, it is kind of like heat or eat. And that is what exists. And so, you know, this issue that you're bringing up, it is, you know, a very, very significant issue in many of our communities. And I think that, you know, I'm glad you brought it up. And I'd like to see far more coordination, you know, at a state level and, you know, on a federal level on this. And, you know, again, I have to go back to my own communities because my tribe is in a situation, and many of our tribes are, where you use it or you lose it in terms of the sovereignty. There's a lot of things we can take jurisdiction over, you know, and that is a perfect example. And so within that, I'm just saying that there's sometimes, like, there are these spaces that exist in our communities where the NAFTA regulations do not apply. The state regulations do not apply. And they're gonna have a very hard time coming in and telling us how to parch our rice. Very hard time telling us how to make our hominy, because it is not gonna go well for them when they come in. And I think that, you know, I think that kind of collaboration too with the technologies that you have, you know, I think there's a lot of people in our area that be interested in this kind of thing. You know, building maybe some from there as well, but it is us working together.
Lauren?
So one more question.